So I'd like to go ahead and welcome to everyone joining us here on Zoom, as well as the many of you on Instagram and Facebook Live this morning. Welcome. This is our 10th Northwest Business Network meeting of the year, and we're excited to have all of you here. My name is Michelle Sherritt. I am one of the owners of the Northwest Business Network and our other four powerful networking groups, the Oak Brook, Naperville, North Shore, and Windy City Business Networks. Just briefly, let me tell you just a little bit more about our network of groups. We started the groups back in 2008 in order to set up business meetings with other business owners for ourselves. My husband and I own two local businesses in Naperville, and it was right when LinkedIn started. So we decided to start the Naperville Business Network Group. It grew, and now it's the largest networking group in Naperville on LinkedIn. We decided about 3 years ago to trademark the names and take 3 of the groups live. So the Naperville, Oak Brook, and Northwest group meet in person. Making the groups live meant that we would do monthly meetings, we would have guest speakers, we would do happy hour events, we'd have a membership. And now to date, we have over 332 paid members. We have almost 3,000 folks on LinkedIn, which is incredible, and we're still growing. Membership, you can review that on our website at nwbiz.net. However, just real briefly, our membership is $3.99 a year. And that includes a 30-minute podcast interview about you and your business. And that goes out to over 110,000 subscribers that we have, over 6 different platforms that we have the podcast on. If you want to hear any podcasts or learn more, you can go to our website. The link is there, but you can also go to windycitybiz.com, and that's our podcast. You also get a blog post about you and your business. So we take that podcast interview, we break it up into a blog post. We also post on our social media platforms, so Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for all 5 groups. So that's 15 different platforms about your business throughout the year. All events are free to you with the membership. That includes your monthly meetings, your happy hour events, and then before COVID, we had a few charity sit-down formal dinner events that we did throughout the year. Since COVID, we've only done a Christmas one, so we haven't chosen the date yet this year or which charity, but we offer that to the public, and all events are offered to the public. But that charity dinner is $150 a ticket. So after we pay the bill for the food and drinks, everything, the rest of it goes to a charity of choice. We've done Toys for Tots before. We've done Ronald McDonald. So we always choose a really nice charity. And we always have a lot that we get to contribute to them, which is really feels good. Also included in your membership, of course, are referrals from others within the group. We have 6 board members on the board for the Northwest Business Network and the other groups. So if we meet you at an event and we come across someone that we can put you in contact with, whether they're a member of our group or not, we will give you that referral. So we try to help out our members as much as possible. Again, we continue to grow, and we'd love to have you become a member as well. So to learn more, just visit the website. You can also apply there, and you can also find out about future events. Speaking of future events, October 18th, we have our next happy hour event from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Noon Whistle Brewing in Naperville. And tickets are $20 for non-members, of course, free for members. Tickets include 2 hours of networking, 2 drink tickets, and food. And we also are giving away a 1-year membership. We do that. We've been consistently doing that at every happy hour event, and we have 1 per month. So definitely, if you're thinking about joining, come check out the event and come check out the group and possibly win that free membership. So let's get started for today. I ask that everyone here on Zoom, please keep yourself muted unless we get to Q&A, or we may pause in between and you want to ask a question. If you are on Facebook or Instagram, please type your comments in the comment section and I will be moderating those throughout. Today's speaker is Mark James. Mark is an accomplished business improvement advisor with over 40 years of experience in data-driven marketing, workplace performance, distribution channel effectiveness, and measurement. As the founder and president of Performance Advisors Group, Inc., Mark helps growing and mature companies achieve customer loyalty and sustainable growth. Today, Mark will be teaching us the 5 marketing principles that every business needs to get right. Welcome, Mark.
Good morning, Michelle. Thank you very much. And good morning, everybody else. Hope it's a good Friday morning for everyone. I appreciate you being here today. And again, just to magnify what Michelle just said, we'll offer ample time at the end of my presentation for Q&A, and I'll maybe pause a couple of times in between too to catch some questions or comments from folks. So let's get started. A lot of talks about marketing like this one often focus on individual tactics and tools. But I'm not going to do that today. Don't get me wrong, tactics and tools are an important element of marketing, but they aren't the only things that determine marketing success. So instead, I'm going to arm you with a different perspective today. We're going to explore what goes missing when we concentrate only on tactics or the latest hot marketing idea of the day, which happens quite often. We're going to dispel the notion that all a business needs for marketing success is some sort of a magic bullet. Searching for a magic marketing bullet is the equivalent of looking for what I call the lost city of Atlantis. So my first tip this morning is don't go there. It's really all in the fundamentals, and I'm going to show you why. So question for everyone, and you can just answer silently to yourselves. Have you ever heard someone say this about their marketing for their organization? We tried that and it didn't work. Well, I have many, many times, and every time that I have heard that, and when I have a conversation with a prospect or a client, I discovered that they're missing one or more key things, which is causing them to make mistakes that are going to waste time and money. And I call these mistakes the marketing equivalent of a cleanup needed on aisle 5. Based upon my 40 years of working with clients in multiple industries, I can distill the most common mistakes to really a handful that are the most common mistakes that organizations make when they attempt to do their marketing. So let's start with what I call the shiny key syndrome. And that's being tempted with some sort of a trendy marketing gimmick or the hot idea of the day. It's sort of like a cat being mesmerized by shiny keys. They get so focused on that and they go after that shiny key without regard to maybe the bigger picture. Another common mistake is marketing through one-off tactics with no strategy that's connecting them. And I'll talk a little bit or a lot more about the importance of strategy. Falling into what I call the wing it trap. And the wing it trap I would define as let's throw something against the wall and see what sticks. Let's try X in the way of a marketing tactic and see if it works. Another very common one is expecting overnight results. It's a very tempting expectation, but I'll get into why it almost never works. Trial and error is a part of good marketing, but not if it's done blindly. And lastly, doing marketing that's all about us or the organization and not enough about the customer. Now, these are all avoidable so long as you practice 5 marketing principles. Marketing is simply common sense combined with a purpose and a method. I have found that this is a very great way to start to think about how to get your arms around marketing for an organization. It's really this equation. It's common sense wrapped around a purpose and a method. It doesn't need to be complicated, but not following these 5 foundational principles is going to waste time and money. So let's go through each one of these principles and I'll show you what I mean. And getting these principles right will lead to results that count, that can be counted. So fundamental principle number 1, think holistically about your marketing. You need to view marketing as a whole and not just its individual pieces. Don't lose sight of the big picture and what must be accomplished. Consider how everything fits together versus standing alone so you don't jump directly into tactics before understanding that big picture strategy. And also keep in mind not to rush into tactics and grab onto the latest marketing shiny key before considering whether they fit into the big picture or not. Fundamental principle number 2, have a plan. Start with the end in mind. Remember what I said about winging it? Winging it doesn't work. It's an easy trap to fall into. And what I'm reminded when I talk about the importance of a plan with regard to marketing and strategy, a quote from a gentleman by the name of Sun Tzu, who wrote a book centuries ago called The Art of War. And in that book, he indicated that tactics without strategy is the noise before the defeat. Let me repeat that. Tactics without strategy is the noise before the defeat. A good plan is the method in the marketing equation. Having no plan is going to lead to no discipline, and no discipline is going to waste your time and money. So it's very important here to prioritize your marketing imperatives, or what marketing must accomplish. So let's talk a little bit about that. Everything that marketing needs to achieve falls into just 4 imperatives. That's it, the 4 that you see here. Now, generating demand and acquiring business is one that most people think about when they think about marketing. But these other imperatives that you see here must not be forgotten. For instance, without awareness in the marketplace, a business, especially a new business that's starting up, will struggle to generate demand and see orders. So it's important to first concentrate and make a priority of promoting your brand and image. And they're candidly more important than generating demand up front. Because if no one knows you're there, it's going to be hard to see demand or opportunity to acquire business. A business also needs to interact with customers to understand what they need, so they can create the right products and services that buyers are going to eagerly adopt. There are a lot of organizations that, especially again, new organizations, want to focus on making sure that what they're offering is going to be adopted and bought by customers. And so you can use marketing to do that. So that's a priority or an imperative in and of itself. It's also imperative that the employees' perceptions of a company's brand and its culture need to be consistent with the brand and image that's being positioned in the marketplace. A disconnect between these 2 things will diminish your marketing impact and the customer experience. So the order of importance of these imperatives is going to change over time, given the life cycle of the business. It will also depend on where, in terms of what you prioritize as most important and next, and how you set your budget for these things. Not only it depends on life cycle, but also market conditions and competition at the time. So just a quick pause here. Am I making sense so far? Just wave your hand or put a little comment in Facebook or whatever. Okay, so I haven't lost anybody. That's not my intent. I want to keep everybody with me here. So let's move on to foundational principle number 3. Allow your marketing the time it needs to work, to be patient. I get it. There's always pressure to deliver results sooner than later. And all of us who've ever been in an organization working for somebody who's got line responsibility and we're responsible for marketing, there's always going to be pressure to see what are the results, what have you done for me lately. However, a very important point to keep in mind here, you cannot rush great marketing, simply because prospects and customers are on their own schedule, not yours. They may not be at the point in their purchase journey to buy just yet. By way of example, for a high-ticket, complex product or service, a relationship with the buyer needs to be nurtured first in order to create a buyer confidence to actually act with regard to products and services. On the other hand, for commodity products where there's very little differentiation, the buying journey is usually a little shorter. So it's more important to know in that case, when the purchase is imminent. In either case, your marketing must match your buyer's state of mind. Principle number 4, use data about how customers in the marketplace interact with your products and services to make better informed marketing decisions. I'm very fond of this comment from Peter Drucker: if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And that's certainly true of marketing as well as everything else that we encounter every day in business. In particular, your marketing data and analytics should constantly evolve as you increase knowledge of buyer behavior. It's also important to understand how each buyer wishes to be communicated to, because at the end of the day, in the beginning of the day, not everybody is going to be looking at one particular delivery medium. So you have to understand how customers prefer to be communicated to. Good data and analytics also enable you to continuously refine your marketing content and the messaging so that you're always delivering the right message to the right buyer at the right time at the lowest cost. And using data allows you to accomplish those 4 things. So also, it's important to have a database that's dedicated to your marketing and your marketing data. Databases for other purposes in a business won't properly support marketing. I've seen plenty of examples of trying to run marketing off of a manufacturing database or the internal financials of the organization. they're not gonna do the job that a database that's put together and built to support marketing directly. Last point to keep in mind here too, that trial and testing are a legitimate part of marketing. You've maybe heard the term A/B testing, where we try a message A with a first audience and message B with another audience and see the differences. That's a legitimate part of marketing. That has been A/B testing has been around as long as marketing's been around. It actually goes into some things that were done at the early part of the 20th century. So it's an old tried and true tactic. Obviously, we go far beyond that these days. But the important thing is that when you do trial and testing, you want to do it from an informed point of view. So using data helps eliminate guesswork and give you that informed point of view. Let me give you an example of how analytics actually drive results. This is an example from a client of mine that I had several years ago, Caterpillar. They manufacture, as we all know, those yellow machines we see on the road doing construction and in other applications. Well, they also manufacture a line of work tools, which are the attachment that go on a Caterpillar machine that actually does the work. A bucket, a pneumatic hammer, a grapple that would pick up scrap or broken up concrete to move it from a demolition site. So this is an example of some analytics that we did and some results that we got by properly applying analytics after we had done some initial work and some interactions with a database of about 250,000 customers in North America that own Caterpillar equipment. The goal of the overall effort was to increase the market share of CAT work tools on their own machines. It was $1 billion opportunity in North America. In the US and Canada, $1 billion in CAT work tool opportunity on their own machines, but they were getting less than 20% of that because a lot of wheel fitters were supplying work tools to their customers. So here's an example of 3 messages that we did, and I want to point out the importance of how being granular with your messaging to get the right message to the right customer at the right time actually will drive some results. If you notice that first message, get more from your CAT equipment with CAT work tools. So here we're talking about the equipment and combining the work tool together. The overall response rate, and by the way, this was a direct mail campaign. We did not use digital simply because the audience is not in the digital world. Back to my point earlier about making sure we talk to an audience in the medium that they're used to and they're comfortable with. We knew based upon research that CAT equipment owners prefer direct mail versus something digital. So we had a 14.1% overall response rate with that message. And if you look at, we did that message on a random basis across all segments. So across all the different kinds of customer segments among those 250,000 customers, we got a 10% response rate with that message. However, we also specifically focused on that message on any customer that had a lifetime value that was very high and a very high likelihood to buy and was a relatively larger customer with annual sales over $50,000. And we got a 16.1% response rate. So we lifted response to the direct mail by 6 percentage points by focusing on this particular segment and retargeting the message. Let's look at the second message real quickly. How can CAT work tools improve your productivity? So now we're changing the focus to the productivity of the customer's business. We had an 11.9% overall response rate. The random segment, we saw an 8.7% response rate, but we also then put that message out to high lifetime value and likely to buy segments. For the next to highest lifetime value and likely to buy segment, we increased the response rate to 11.9%. And for the highest likely to buy and lifetime value customers or prospects out there, we had a 13.4% response rate. By the way, in the construction machinery industry average for direct marketing response in those days was 2.7%. So even with our random marketing, we were obviously doing the right things. Let's look at this last message real quickly. CAT work tools built for your business. So we're not talking about productivity specifically, or we're not talking about the equipment. We're talking about the customer's business. 14.2% overall response rate. The random segment, we had 8.9% response. But in this case, we focused not only on very high likely to buy and lifetime value, but on a couple of specific industry segments. And I candidly don't remember exactly who these were. I think that one of them was were sewer and water contractors, and the other one was that were scrap and demolition contractors, people that tear down buildings and clean up sites for rebuild. That message to that audience got an 18.9% response rate. So we doubled response rate basically by focusing. So the key point here with a lot of numbers here is that when you use analytics and your data, you are going to make better informed decisions, and as a result, see better results. See better results. Another thing to keep in mind about evolving analytics is the importance of making sure that you're looking beyond just what has already happened in terms of marketing. Most marketing analytics do what I call standard reporting. They focus on what you've done already. It's sort of like being in a boat, and if the boat is moving forward, but you're looking in the wake of the boat to see what's happened. And perhaps there's also some ad hoc analysis that's been done by an organization that's doing marketing, where you're looking at not only what you've done, but where have you done better. So between two products, we sold X, 100 of X and 25 of Y. Let's look for why, maybe understand why the two were different. That then leads you into, in this continuum of evolving your analytics into the data mining phase, where you uncover hidden intelligence and you look for patterns that exist in the data that you have on your customers and the transactions that are going on. And as you build up a database for your marketing efforts, and you have a lot of transactional information, you're putting it into it, you're tracking who the customers are, and you can go out and you can append information into that database. You can go to places like D&B and other places, other sources, to get a better picture and get a sense of the attributes of all your customers. And you data mine all that to look for patterns to exist. So for instance, if you've got a customer or a particular customer group, for instance, the sewer and water contractor, they're buying a lot versus another. So we want to look at what are the attributes of the sewer and water customers that are buying. Are they older customers? Are they bigger? Are they smaller? Is there some geographic variation? Is there some seasonal differences? So all of those things you can cover when you do data mining. And then when you get to that point, now you're able to move up the continuum and start to do some predictive modeling. That lifetime value and likelihood to buy models that I talked about, we actually ran some analysis, and were able to come up with and score customers based on their likelihood to buy and their lifetime value based upon their historic purchases. So those two models that we use to target those messages that I just mentioned are examples of predictive models in terms of what's going to happen next. And then finally, you completely optimize and accelerate the ROI of your marketing to get to a point where not only you can predict what's going to happen next, but you can also guide best outcomes based on structuring your messaging around that. Any questions about this real quickly, or comments? I know I just threw a lot of stuff at you there.
So I don't see any comments about this specifically, but there are other comments. Do you want to go through those or wait till the end? I think they were on past slides that you did.
Well, I tell you what, why don't we take a break right now and do a couple, because we've got time. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do
All
that.
Right. So one is, they said, we have many clients who have tried marketing strategies that another company that they're familiar with have tried as well, but it didn't work for their business. They wonder why. If it worked for one business, why didn't it work for theirs? Wouldn't you say, so I'm saying, wouldn't you say every business or industry is different? And, how do you figure out what marketing strategy would be good for you and your business?
Yeah, it's a good question. What's good for the goose is not good for the gander sometimes, is how I would start to answer the question. It would be important to understand what nuances exist between the two. On the surface, it may look like, okay, everything's the same, but how was the messaging exactly the same in terms of how they were targeting and who they were targeting with their message? If there are differences there, that could also explain a difference in results. It could also be, what was the delivery medium? Was one organization heavily using digital delivery mediums like email or text messaging as opposed to direct mail or other techniques? So I would want to understand better the difference between what the two organizations are doing in terms of delivery, content, messaging, and targeting. So I would respond by saying what may be good for one may not be good for the other, especially if you're doing things a little differently. And then this is where trial and error and doing testing comes into play. not necessarily trying to copy what someone else is doing. The other thing that can make a difference too is that, your brand promise and your core values maybe resonate more with prospects than another organization. So there are a lot of variables that come into play. So there's no easy answer other than understanding your audience as best you can and talking and focusing them in language and in terms that they understand.
Okay. Another person says, I worked with a marketing company for over a year and saw no results. They kept saying it takes time, it takes time. You mentioned step 3 is to be patient, but how long is too long?
Another very good question. The essence, think about marketing as a journey as opposed to an individual event. An individual tactic might be an event, but marketing is a journey, and most marketing takes time. That interaction with customers, and back to what I said a moment ago about the importance of understanding for a complex product or service, you really have to generate and build a relationship, and that takes time. Perhaps if it's a commodity item, it's more about timing as opposed to the relationship. So it's important to understand how long the life cycle or how long the buying cycle is for the clients or the customers or buyers in your industry, and match your expectations to that. Specifically to answer the question, how long is too long? That's where trial and error or trial and testing comes into play. If you're not seeing any results after what would be a reasonable amount of time, and based upon industry averages or specifics for the industry you're in, and quite often a lot of industries have associations that will provide or make available to you information about marketing and averages. So you've got some sort of a benchmark you can compare to. So if things are dragging on for a long period of time and you're not seeing the action and results, that would suggest you've got to go back, open the hood up, and look at the message, look at the content, look at the targeting, what patterns exist in your data that you can use to change how your message is being delivered and what the content is. There's no really hard, fast answer. I'm not going to put a timeline on it. It's going to be different for every client.
Okay.
But it can happen, so you have to stay vigilant.
Okay. Last question. Do you have any advice on how much a new business should spend on marketing per year? I'm a new restaurant in the Naperville area. I've been scoping out different marketing firms, and I'm getting prices all over the place. Basically what we're doing is coming up with a marketing strategy for our team to implement, such as social media marketing and Google ads.
Another great question. In terms of, there's no hard and fast rule, and I'll say up front, I resist throwing out a number because it's not going to be the same for every industry or specific application or specific business. If you're a startup organization, I can tell you this: as you remember those marketing imperatives I mentioned, you certainly want to make a priority, and your budget ought to be devoted to generating awareness. So getting your brand and your image out there, and awareness is going to be job number one. So that should be your primary focus and where most of your budget should be devoted. You can do some pro forma analysis and look at the profitability of your operation and what you're serving in terms of your menu, and determine what portion of that can you afford to devote to marketing. And then dedicate that, and that becomes your beginning budget. What that number is going to be up for you to decide based upon the financials and the nuances of the business and your cost of goods and so on. But I would certainly say with a great degree of certainty, you want to focus on that marketing imperative about generating awareness out there for your brand and your image and what you're all about in your brand promise. Also, to do some initial marketing and interact with customers to understand what's hot for them. Do they like your breakfast special every day over the lunch special? So understand the reasons why that may be the case. Those are just some examples.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. I'll move on then. Let's go on to fundamental principle number 5, and that is to be relevant. Demonstrating an understanding of what customers are looking for is the most effective way to connect with them. And I'm going to be honest and tell you all right now, and this is not meant to make you all feel bad, and it shouldn't, but customers really don't care about you per se. What they care about is what you can do to solve their problems or fulfill their needs. When you connect with the buyer's emotional state and their needs, you only need about 10% of the message to be about you to generate interest, intent, and purpose. So I call it the 90-10 rule. 90% of your message and your content should be about them and their business and talking and use language that's important to your customers, and only 10% about you. And also remember that one message does not fit all, and understand and know this where your buyers are in their purchase journey. Consider who should get what message. And by way of example, in terms of the importance of considering who gets what message, I would contend that all of you out there, you don't talk to your grandmother the same way you talk to your best friend. So here are some takeaways real quickly. These are things, these are 5 things I would say, if you remember anything from the day, these are the ones that would recommend you internalize or take away. Again, prioritize your imperatives. What must your marketing accomplish? Think about those things. Where are you in the life cycle of your business? What are the market conditions out there? And what is the competition doing or not doing, where it might provide an opportunity? So that, and then across those 4 imperatives, prioritize them to help you allocate where your budget should go. Have a plan and stick to it. Allow time for your plan to succeed. In other words, be patient within reason. Use data and analytics to improve your decision making. And certainly remember that 90-10 content rule. 90% of your message and your content should be about the customer and their needs and desires, only 10% about you. It's not about you, it's about them. I've mentioned that at the front of this that the marketing equation is common sense wrapped around method and purpose. Well, here's some common sense things that I've already mentioned that I think bear repeating. Buyers don't care about you until they know you care about their needs. And again, from Sun Tzu, tactics without strategy is the noise before the defeat. Remember that you don't talk to your grandmother the same way you talk to your best friend, I would submit. And lastly, when it comes to marketing, throwing something against the wall to see what sticks is going to lead you down the path of this quote here from Lord Kelvin. Large increases in cost with crushable increases in performance can only be tolerated in racehorses and fancy women. The same thing is true with marketing, folks. And that's why these 5 principles are going to help you to avoid wasting time and money and to give you a proportionate increase in your performance for your investment. So that's pretty much what I had to talk about today. But let's have a little fun right now. I'm going to ask everybody to provide some input here. These are some fairly recognizable logos of companies. Let's start with the one in the upper left-hand corner. I think you all recognize that organization. What about that logo may stick out or may at first glance you don't see something? Anyone want to comment what's in that logo?
So folks, if you are on Zoom and you want to go ahead and unmute, this would be that interactive moment where we can go ahead and interact and talk with Mark. I've listened to this presentation before, so I know exactly what we're looking at. Does anybody else see in the FedEx logo anything that stands out that's different? I've got people on Facebook too, but I know that they know the answer.
Yeah. Anybody want to venture a guess? The FedEx logo, what's in that? What's embedded in that logo? Michelle, you want to tell them?
All right. So between the E and the X, there's an arrow that goes to the right. You guys see
They did that on purpose. They did that on purpose to imply or relate back to what they do. They move things for people directionally. Let's go to the upper right here, the Gillette logo. What is unique about something in that logo?
People online are saying the angle, the font.
Angle the font, but in particular, yeah, that's one. But there's another aspect of that, of the font in a couple of letters that stand out or should stand out. Notice what looks like a razor cut or a sharp cut through the I
that's
and the
the
G.
dot of the I. It looks like a razor.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. relates to their product. How about the Amazon logo?
Frankly, it looks like a penis.
Oh, no.
Okay. I don't, I'm confident that's not what they were trying to get across. But you know,
It doesn't mean that's not what they're getting across.
that brings up an interesting point. And that is to be from a brand and image standpoint. And Michelle, I know you're going to resonate with this, and for some of you others, it's important to understand that when you go to set something like a brand and an image, be very careful about how people could misinterpret an image or even your wording. One of my favorite examples of a marketing failure, one of the more famous ones I remember when I was studying marketing in college, from General Motors. General Motors manufactured through the Chevrolet brand a car called the Nova. If anybody remembers the Chevy Nova.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the Chevy Nova, they tried marketing it in Central and South and Latin America, and it fell flat in its face because apparently in Spanish, the word Nova relates to something that doesn't work or won't run. So clearly an example where they didn't do their homework and understand that in spite of their best intentions, it backfired.
Yeah.
Literally. So in the Amazon logo, the arrow it implies that they have everything available from A to Z. That's the purpose of the arrow. How about this logo here? What company is that?
Shell gas.
Shell.
Mhm.
Shell Oil. Shell Oil for decades has been one of the most widely recognized brands in the world, and that's been that way for decades. And if you'll notice, if you go to most Shell stations any longer, all you see is this logo because it's so widely recognized. And a lot of other widely known brands do the same thing. I'd venture to say if you've been by a new McDonald's that's been built in the last 15 or 20 years, you don't see the word McDonald's, you just see the golden arches.
Mhm.
So the point is that if you've done a good job of establishing your brand and your image, you don't need to do a lot other than having a logo that's recognizable.
Mhm.
So, okay. Just to wrap up here, one last parting thought from Jeffrey Gitomer, who is one of my favorite people in the sales arena. He is known for saying that people don't want to be sold, but they do want to buy. And I like this as a word of advice, in that when you strike out to do marketing, you don't want to focus much on selling as opposed to you want to make it easier for your customers to buy. So with that, and before we get to Q&A here, I'm offering a free how-to blueprint today to anybody who'd like to have it. And the purpose of this blueprint is to help an existing organization do a checkup on their core values, mission, and vision. Or for a new organization, you can use this as a blueprint to build the right core values, mission, and vision. Now, you're probably asking, what does this have to do with marketing? Well, I contend it has everything to do with marketing, because along with those 5 principles and that basic equation of common sense wrapped around method and purpose, at the end of the day, your core values and mission as an organization, mission and vision as an organization, are the 3 things that should tell a customer or the world what to expect when I'm going to interact with your company or your business. So before anything else, you've got to have the right core values and a very compelling mission statement and vision statement, because that really is the foundation upon which you build marketing along with those 5 principles. So I'm offering this free of charge. Michelle, do we have, for people that are in chat, they could just, if they want it, just put their email in there and the word blueprint, and I'll send it to them. For people that are on Facebook or Instagram, however you want to suggest it, but you can email me, Mark J at Perform Advisors. Just tell me you saw the presentation day and you want the blueprint, and I will send it to you.
Okay, does that'll work for everybody on Facebook and Instagram? Just email Mark directly here, and then ask for the blueprint. Just say that you attended the Northwest Business Network meeting this morning.
Perfect. Good. So I'm open for questions or comments.
So we do have a question on, I think it's Instagram. It's the same business. It's the new restaurant that was asking about how much they should be spending.
Yeah.
They said, what should I be looking for in a marketing company in order to make the right decision of who to work with?
Again, a great question. There are lots of options out there, as you know. The first thing I would recommend is I would ask them for their opinion of these 5 principles. How do they help their clients address and make sure that these 5 principles are going to be observed when you're using their services? And look for how they respond to that. Also, understand that for a lot of organizations that are in marketing, they are very good at one aspect of marketing. They might be a niche marketing support firm, and they do great work. So you need to also make sure that if they do great work and you're comfortable and you've got a sense of trust with them, that what they're going to do for you is going to feed into and support your overall marketing strategy in the big picture, as opposed to just having a series of suppliers that are giving you one-off tactics that are not tied together. So keep the strategy, overall strategy in mind. Make sure that who you're selecting to work with is going to provide services that fit into your overall strategy, and get a sense, and just try to outright ask them, what's your opinion of these 5? How are you going to help me support to make sure that my marketing is going to satisfy these 5 principles?
Okay.
And a good established and respected marketer will appreciate that question, and they'll give you an answer that should make you feel comfortable.
Okay. You may want to look in the chat, Mark. John Hitchens put in his email address to get the blueprint. So just want to make sure he gets that.
Okay. Well, before we get off, we want to do a save chat. That's how I'll capture them all. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Is there anyone on Zoom who wants to unmute and ask a question or has a comment? Here on Facebook and Instagram, I mean, just a lot of great comments about how they, enjoyed the presentation, really got a lot out of the 5 marketing principles. They can't wait to implement some of the steps. Some people are saying step 3, being patient, is hard to do as a business owner. Do you have any comments about that, Mark?
Yeah, again, the need to see results, I get it. That's what we're all in business, and what we all do to drive results for ourselves or for our employer or for our customers or whatever. And so, what have you done for me lately is just part of the real world. I get that. But you have to again understand that marketing is a journey, and results that come overnight are very rare. So you have to just manage your expectations around that. And yeah, it doesn't mean that you have to live and spend money and see no return. If you're making your investments and you're adhering to these 5 principles and it's still not working, there's something in what you're doing that you want to go back and examine. And go back and just do a reality check on your strategy, do a reality check on your tactics. Are they matching up to your strategy? Is your messaging right for your audience? If the audience is not responding, perhaps it's time to just go out and reach out to customers and prospects and just outright ask, what could I do? What could I be doing to have more of your attention or to do business with you? Quite often it's a very simple, it's sometimes hard to do, but something it's simple as that, just asking your customers and prospects what it is that will help me to help you.
Okay. Julie here on Zoom says, great presentation, Mark. This was very helpful. I enjoyed the caterpillar example, especially. I think that was pretty helpful to.
Thank you, Julie.
To show us the analytics. By
the way, we have a person on Zoom here who actually was my client for that project, Frank Dennis. Frank, you want to comment about the work tool work we did? I showed him. I'll go back and show the example. If I can do that. I use this example, Frank, about the messaging and how we targeted. You want to turn on your mic.
That better?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. This is Frank Dennis. Frank Dennis was my client at Caterpillar when we did this project. Anything you want to just add?
At Caterpillar, the business was selling machines, and we were in what we call a work tool business, and that's the working end of the machine: the buckets, the hammers, the clamshells, all that stuff. And especially on the skid steer loaders, what Mark may have been missing is that sometimes those things are more profitable than the machine itself. So we started with Mark trying to figure out, well, how do we get the dealers motivated because they want to sell the machines? And so he put together a heck of a program. In the end, we motivated the salesmen and their wives. I remember that, Mark. And we motivated the customers to, didn't we? We had a Super Bowl contest, didn't we?
It wasn't Super Bowl. I can't remember what it was now.
We
We
did.
did a number of different things over time. Yeah.
But he got so good that we could tell you, and usually with marketing, it seemed like marketing is if you got more readership in a magazine. Well, that doesn't tell you if they actually bought something.
Mhm.
So we got it where we could say what we invested in customer A, did he buy or did he not buy? So we were getting a return by customer from this program, and it was just fantastic. So we knew where to invest money, what kind of customer profiles, blah blah blah. So it was quite effective. We quadrupled sales of those work tools.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's-
We ended up with a 60-to-1 marketing ROI.
Was that?
It was a 60-to-1 ROI for the marketing aspect of the program.
It was,
Yeah.
anyway, so great job, and I'm a big fan of Mark. In fact, he and I talk most weeks just about how it's going, and we always reminisce about the work tool program.
Well, thanks for being here today, Frank, and for commenting. Anything else, Michelle? Anybody else have anything?
Great comments. I want to thank you, Mark, for coming today and talking to us about the 5 principles for marketing success. I think it was very insightful and appreciate having you today, as well as all of you who are here on Facebook, as well as Instagram and Zoom. Mark's talk today was recorded, so if you missed anything or you want to go back, you can visit our website and that will be made available to you later on today. Don't forget about our October 18th happy hour event. Mark usually comes to our events, so you might meet him there. It's on October 18th at Noon Whistle Brewery in Naperville. Again, tickets are $20, free for members. So if you'd like to learn more about our group, future events, sign up for any events or see the recordings of any of our talks, just visit our website at nwbiz.net. Again, I want to thank you, Mark, for joining us today. It was a great presentation.
My pleasure.
And I want to thank everyone who attended, and have a great day and a great weekend.